Hello, welcome to Of the People. We are excited to have with us Morgan Ortagus, founder of POLARIS National Security, also former spokesperson for Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State. Morgan, welcome to Of the People.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And welcome to the First in the Nation Summit. How's it going for you?
This is my third event in New Hampshire. I've been coming here since the summer doing national security forums, and I think I'm an honorary Granite Stater, or close to it.
I think you need to come a few more times.
A few more times? Okay.
So I've lived in the Granite State for 10 years, and I'm still considered a flatlander. Okay, so just so we're clear. But I appreciate you taking the time. Look, these are serious times. I want to talk a little bit about Israel. I want to talk a little bit about the southern border. What's the latest update on Israel? I know they were starting a ground incursion. I know there's concern that public opinion is going to turn the other way, and this White House may equivocate or establish a moral equivalency. Tell us what you know and tell us what we can expect.
So I don't think that the ground invasion, at least at this moment, has started in full force. They have started some raids, some operations. You're obviously seeing rockets going back and forth. The concerning thing, of course, Israel's going to be able to take care of Hamas in Gaza. I'm not as worried about that as I am about what happens with Hezbollah in the north, what happens from Syria. There was reportedly some rockets that came from Syria into the Golan Heights.
Right.
And does this end up turning into a multi-front war for Israel? They're surrounded by their enemies. We saw, sadly, 50 years ago in the Yom Kippur War, what can happen to the state of Israel. And it's such a tiny country surrounded by enemies that its very existence is questionable, right? All of the times. It's easy for enemies to get together and to encircle it and to try to destroy the Jewish state. And that is exactly what their intention is, that's what their plan is. And so we need to stand with Israel. I was glad that the President and Secretary Blinken had strong words of standing by Israel this week, but that needs to happen not just this week, it needs to happen next week and the week after and months down the road whenever they are still trying to eliminate the terrorist threat from Gaza.
I could not agree more. Thank you for that, because we're hearing some moral equivalency. I don't know how you establish a moral equivalency, and the EU has already put out requests for a proportionate response. Israel's not known for raping women or beheading babies, so I'm not sure what
How do you proportionally respond to rapes and beheadings and burning families alive?
Right.
I'd love to know what a proportional response is to that.
Right. I don't understand. I just know we've been through this before, you and I. I've been to Israel many times. I heard your speech. I've stood on the Golan Heights. If you have not been to the Golan Heights and understand, first of all, go. I agree. And if you look down, you understand why it was so important, to take the Golan Heights, and it's so important for President Trump to do what he did with recognizing the Golan Heights. The Golan is part of Israel. But the concern is a multi-front war.
Yeah.
How do you deal with Iran, though? Because at the end of the day, I think you're right. The Israelis will take care of what they need to do to eradicate Hamas and protect future generations of Israelis, because that's what this fight's about. But then there's Iran. And obviously with Iran, then you have Russia, you have North Korea, you have China. I think you referenced them as the new axis of evil.
That's right.
Right? How do you deal with Iran in the larger picture?
Well, for the United States, you deal with Iran how we did in the Trump administration under Mike Pompeo. We treated them as the terrorist state that they are. They are the world's leading state sponsor of terror, as designated by multiple Republican and Democratic administrations. And you treat a terrorist state as a terrorist state. You don't treat them as someone who can be negotiated with, a friendly, nation. The massive error in the Obama administration in his second term of trying to negotiate a nuclear deal. They thought they had this fantasy, total fantasy, that they could take a theocratic, revolutionary regime and turn it into a moderating force in the Middle East. That obviously did not work. They got billions of dollars in sanctions relief, which they used to fund terrorism. As I just said in my speech and my remarks earlier, in the Biden administration, they've gone back to that capitulation, back to that appeasement policy. Hamas was receiving about $100 million a year from Iran. It's been $350 million. $350 million this year. Why? Because the Biden administration refuses to enforce the sanctions that are on the book. They just gave them $6 billion. I don't want to hear any more bullshit about oh, well, they haven't used the money yet. The $6 billion.
Fungible.
Money is fungible.
Right.
They knew the $6 billion was coming in. Why would you give $6 billion to an organization that uses any extra money that they have? It doesn't go to schools. It doesn't go to bridges. It doesn't go to public health infrastructure. It goes to terrorism. And what does that terrorism go to do? It's not indiscriminate. The purpose of that terrorism is to wipe Israel off the state of the map and to attack America. When they chant death to Israel, in the next breath they chant death to America. This is our enemy as well. There's at least 27 dead Americans. This is our fight too.
I agree. In the panel you hosted with Senator Ernst yesterday, one of the questions from the audience is, why does everyone hate the Jews?
Yeah.
And I wanted to respond to them that people need to understand, it's not just the Jews. We're the point of the spear. If for some reason the Jews get driven into the sea, all the Christians in the room, you guys are next, right? Because it's the Judeo-Christian values, it's the Judeo-Christian people that radical Islam is fighting against, right? So,
and as I said in my speech, and I say this today, it's Shabbat, and temples around America and around Israel and the world, we're chanting Yam Israel, High the people of Israel live. Do not forget that.
Thank you. I want to talk a little bit about POLARIS National Security.
Yeah.
You're the former spokesperson for Mike Pompeo. There was some chatter that he might have thrown his hat in the ring many months ago for president. That would have been interesting. He's probably one of the best secretaries of state this country's ever had.
I agree.
You are the founder.
I would say, when the Washington Post says you're the worst secretary of state ever, then you know you're the best.
It's a badge of honor.
I actually framed that from the Washington Post and gave it to him.
That's great.
I really did. True story.
So you founded POLARIS National Security.
Yes, sir.
Tell me a little bit about your work, what you're doing besides, we've just covered Israel, but the southern border, the fentanyl. I mean, what comes under that, the aegis of that?
Yes.
What are you doing?
We're a national security think tank, and what we're really focused on is not doing events in D.C. I don't live in D.C. anyway. I live in Tennessee. We're focused on doing national security events around the country to educate people. We did this last year in the 22 cycle to educate people about foreign policy, military policy, national security issues, why they matter, and what we can do about it. And we really want to focus our special guests at our events, which they could be sitting members, they could be candidates, national security leaders. We try to focus on policy, right? I'm not an overly political person. I don't spend my time in politics. I spend my time focused on policy and what is the right policy to keep Americans safe. And sadly, we have been harping and trying to raise the alarm about the border for a long time. And now we're seeing what happened in Israel. Now we're seeing, God forbid, we know that we have, the numbers go back and forth. I heard it was in between January and September, it was between like 150, 160 terrorists on the terror watch list that were apprehended at the border. I often like to say this.
Southern border.
At the southern border. Now, these are the stupid terrorists.
Right. The ones who got caught.
These are the ones who got caught.
Right.
So we have almost 2 million gotaways. I don't know how we don't have some sort of repercussions in our country for that, meaning a terrorist attack from people that have come over the border. God forbid.
Scary.
I pray that doesn't happen. But we know that Iran and Hezbollah have had sleeper cells in the United States. This has been reported on for a long time. We also know that they have these sleeper cells because they have been somewhat disrupted because they are currently trying to assassinate former Trump administration officials, including my boss, Secretary Mike Pompeo. They're trying to assassinate them right now on U.S. soil. This is why they have Secret Service. This is why they have diplomatic security. And to think that we just gave $6 billion to somebody, to a regime that is actively trying to kill the former president, his Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, the National Security Advisor, and the last chairman of the Joint Chiefs, who stayed over for Biden. We gave a state $6 billion when they're actively trying to kill President Trump and his national security team. Like, what the flying, you know what?
And there's only one thing you said I disagree with. You said that President Obama made a mistake. I don't think it was a mistake. I think it was intentional. I think he sees America as a occupying colonial power, and he doesn't appreciate all the freedoms and the greatness of America. You're doing such great work. Where can our listeners find you on social media,
Yes.
on the web?
You can find me on all the social medias at Morgan Ortagus, morganortagus.com. My last name's a little tricky, so it's Ortagus. So morganortagus.com. And then if you want to learn more about Polaris, Polaris, POLARIS-US.org.
Perfect. Morgan, thank you so much for taking
Thank
time
you.
out of your busy schedule.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for being here. We hope to talk
Thank
to you again.
Yes, sir.